speaker, I can speak quieter. It's my pleasure to welcome you to my home, my second home. This is the Western Wall Heritage Foundation Tunnel Tour. We're not in the tunnel yet, not yet. I'll tell you when we get there. Now, please take photographs. I think you've all figured out that that's allowed. Flash is fine and so is video. We do want you to remember your visit. Let me ask you a question. I know you're at the beginning of your tour, but do you have any idea what this represents?
Dome of the Rock.
It's the Dome of the Rock, exactly. Please tell me, what would you expect to find under a building called the Dome of the Rock?
Rock.
Es Sahra. And that is Arabic, and it means rock. In Hebrew, we call it something slightly different. Even Hashasiyah, which means foundation stone. But what of? The Jewish sages say from here, the world was created. Poof! Universe. But it's not just a rock. It's an entire mountain. Mount Moriah, Har HaMoriah. And now we are talking about Abraham and Isaac. And that is why many people feel that right here, heaven reaches down and tries to connect. So people come here to send their prayers back up to make that connection. A site like that, King David would like to include in his capital city. But he ain't got a capital city. So, King David conquers a small village of Jebusites south of our mountain. And he starts to build. He wants to build a temple to hold the Ark of the Covenant, the Arna Kodesh. Gold box with 2 angel things on top, and inside 2 stone tablets with 10 commandments. Not a Bill of Rights. Well, King David discovers the mountain, and he buys it with good money from Araunah, the king of the Jebusites, pushes back his sleeves, and gets ready to start building. And along comes the prophet Nathan. David, stop. You've been a man of war. Your hands have had to shed blood, and it is not appropriate that they be the hands to build a house of peace and prayer and connection. I get it, says David. Has to wait for a time of peace, right? And a man of peace, my son, Solomon. King Solomon builds the first temple, which stands for about 410 years. And then it's destroyed and the Jews are driven into exile. But before we leave this special city, we grab a tiny bit and bury it deep in our hearts. And that is always there. And that, like iron filings to a magnet, is going to pull us back, and we will come back. And when we come back, we'll say, pity, we have to rebuild. And we'll begin to rebuild. We've actually become quite good at it. So we rebuilt a second temple. It was kind of small, it kind of fell down, it kind of needed rebuilding. Finally, along comes someone who's really going to rebuild it properly. You all know his name, come on. Herod, exactly. Can you tell me one good thing about King Herod? The best answer I heard to that was he died, exactly, he died. Well, he was an amazing builder. And a lot of our time today and this 10 days is going to be spent looking at what he created. Why did he do that? Because he wanted us to remember him. And that's what we remember him for. So, all right, he's a good builder. A good builder is not going to build on top of anything else in this city. We have earthquakes. So he probably cleared everything off, if you follow my drift, down to bedrock and anchored the second temple in bedrock. We don't know, because there's never been a supervised archaeological dig under the Temple Mount. Let's just assume that what Herod did was what any good builder would do, and he anchored in bedrock. He also made the Temple Mount much bigger. He pushed the limits north and south and west, something no one else had ever done, because there was a mountain right in the way. The Antonia Mountain. Chutzpah. Off with its head. Now, Herod's stonemasons have a lot of limestone they've got to get rid of, so they carve it into building blocks and simply push it down the hill. Out of the way. Using gravity to build the western retaining wall of the new large Temple Mount. Chopped, carved, pushed, And you've created a wall that's 488 meters long. That's about a third of a mile. And the western wall outside is right here, 1/12 of that entire massive wall. And on top, Herod's second temple. Herod's second temple might have been the second temple, or the third second temple, or the fourth. It doesn't really matter. It was Herod's Beis Hamikdash. And I'd like you to understand something about it, because I can't really describe it, although we know it was magnificent. We know it was about 50 meters tall. What does that mean? These are scale models. So, when you go up on the Temple Mount with Michael, and you're quite amazed at how big the Dome of the Rock is, please remember this perspective. The temple, the Beis Hamikdash, was 2.5 times taller. How much gold might that be? $17 million worth of gold, donated by King Hussein of Jordan. Imagine how much more was in the temple itself, because it was decorated with thick plates of pure gold. And while the temple was standing, Jerusalem began to grow. People left the small city of David, moved to a hill in the west, and spread out all the way to the north. People living on this western hill were quite clever and built themselves a bridge so they could easily get onto the Temple Mount. That ancient bridge is what is above your heads. A bridge built to connect the western part of the city where people live with the Temple Mount where they came to worship. And that means that we're standing under these arches right here. Notice, there's a row of arches below your feet also. But nothing in this city lasts forever. And after standing for less than 100 years, Herod's temple was totally burnt to the ground. Well, how do you burn down limestone, you ask me? Quite simply, I answer, if you build the fire hot enough and keep it burning long enough, your limestone reduces to a pile of white powder. Along comes a wind from the desert, and the whole thing is gone with the wind. For 600 years, nothing on the Temple Mount, according to most archaeologists. I'm sorry. And then, in 691, Abd al-Melech ibn al-Marwani, the Khalif from Damascus, built what is indeed a splendid building right on the top of Mount Moriah. The Dome of the Rock is the oldest Islamic building still standing today. It's 1,300 years old. It marks Islam's third holiest site, after Mecca and Medina. But it's our holy mountain. That's probably going to lead to some interesting discussions. And it has. First, the Muslims were here praying. 300 years later, the Crusaders come, totally uninvited, galloping in through the gates and say, wow, that would make a beautiful church. It would not, say the Muslims. And your discussion begins. 88 years. Yes, church. No church. Yes, church. No church. Finally, the Muslims say it's time to move the Crusaders on. What was their problem? A valley. The Cheesemakers Valley, the Tyropian Valley, was very steep and cut the city in half, making it difficult to defend, until the Muslims began to think out of the box and fill that valley with arches. Fill the Tyropian Valley with arches, and then you could build your buildings right on top of those arches, right beside the western wall and on top of it. And now, it's going to be easier for you to get to Al-Aqsa, which is the actual mosque where Muslims pray 5 times a day. So, let's add to that what they did. You please imagine the arches in the valley, and I'm going to bring in the houses. Bye-bye valley. Hello city bound together, almost flat and much easier to defend. Bye-bye Crusaders. Back to Europe with you. And that was done 800 years ago. And those people built houses that we just walked by. People are still living in those 800-year-old houses, which means underneath are still the 800-year-old arches. What we're getting ready to do now is walk north under those arches and see what there is to see. please open the circle a tiny bit so everybody can see exactly where I'm pointing to. Everyone move back, even the shorter people. Just